I'm Max Sterling, welcome to LARPgasm. In 2 weeks I'm going to attend a LARP I've never been to before. It's one I've had my eye on for a long time, but they've never really had an event near me. They're usually a couple hours away from me, but they picked a camp that was close to me, so I'm going to check it out. Now the thing is, I don't want to invest too much time or money into a costume for this event because I have no guarantee they'll ever be back in this area, so this might be a one-time shot for me. Now, I'm going to play a wizard, which is way out of character for me. I'm usually playing fighters, rogues, anything with a sword or a dagger or a shield or something like that. I have never really played a caster, so this is a huge departure. But I'm going to go ahead and make a costume, and I think it's going to look pretty good. I want you to go and follow along with me. Now, I bought these witches hats on sale after the holiday here. They were very cheap. I believe they were like $1. The thing is, one on its own is not very sturdy, but I think if I double them up, it'll make it a lot more resistant. So that's what we're going to do. And they were cheap enough I can do this. And what we're going to do is cover these in a gray fabric. And then we're going to make a nice cloak and rest of the costume for this wizard that I have in my mind. And hopefully it works out okay. Now there's a lot better ways to make a wizard hat, and there's a lot cooler ways to do it, and you can make them much more realistic. But for what I want to do, this is going to be very cheap and very simple. So this wizard hat is going to cost maybe $8 or $9 to throw together. And basically we're going to start out by gluing these two hats together with some spray glue adhesive, and then we're going to cover it in that fabric. So let's go ahead and get started on my wizard build for this LARP that I'm going to. Gluing these hats together I don't think was anything to write home about. We just sprayed some Super 77 inside of one and then set it on top of the other one to make this more of a stable platform to work with. If it gets a little weird, that's okay. This is going to get bent anyhow and sewed so that it looks more like a Gandalf style hat. And we're just going to attach felt to the outside of it. Now this is the same felt I made those $2 Viking leg wraps out of. It's very cheap, and it sort of looks like wool, so we're going to go ahead and use this. Now what we're going to start with is I want to make to go around the brim. We're going to do this in two pieces. We're going to do a cone type shape or a funnel that goes on the top, and then a part that covers the brim and folds under a little bit. So we want to make sure that we leave excess the whole way around. I'm probably not going to do a lot of measuring. I'm going to do a lot of this by eye. So if you're not able to do that, you may want to do some measuring and stuff, but I'm just going to leave a lip of about 1 inch or 2 and just cut a circle around this. Now this is actually going to get wrapped under. What we're going to do is cut a hole in the top of it and drop it over. So let's go ahead and do that now. We're going to determine where the center of it is. So we will do a little bit of sort of measuring or eyeballing it there to determine right where the center is. But the underneath this will be folded under. So unless you plan on taking the hat off or something, it doesn't really matter what the underneath looks. I mean, we can play with it later to try to make it look a little bit better, but for right now, we don't really care. We need to know how wide this gap is here. So it's basically 9 inches. So we're going to put that center mark here, that center punch at 4.5. Now give us 4.5 this way, 4.5 that way to make 9 inches. So we're going to go ahead and just cut a line. Right on down to 9, and a line this way, right on down to 0. We'll find our center point again here, which was right at 4.5, so it's right there. And we'll do the same thing this direction. And you can sort of see where we're getting to. Now once we make this cone piece for the top, it'll cover up all of this, but these flaps allow us to attach it with glue to here. So once we get this cone on top for this portion, this will all be covered up. So that's why I said a lot of this doesn't really matter what it looks like, because it's going to get covered in overlapping layers. Now I bought 2 yards because I didn't think 1 yard looked like enough. That was foolish. This is way too much fabric for this. I think probably, if you're doing crap measuring like me, a yard would probably be enough. If you actually measure this and do it properly, you might be able to get by with a ½ yard or 3/4 of a yard. If you're not afraid to use scraps, you could maybe even do it with less. So now what we need is this cone or this funnel to cover this portion of it. So this is where we may need to do some measuring and figure out how big of a piece we actually need for this, because we want it to be one continual piece. We don't want it to have to be broken down if we don't have to. So let's go ahead and do some measuring here. So you're gonna want to get one of these cloth tapes. If you have a flexible ruler, you might be able to bend it and measure that way. Like I said, we're not really working in precise numbers here today. So having a cloth tape measure is probably the better way to do this. And I'm getting 28.5. If that sounds large, yes, it is large. In fact, if I put this on my head, it falls down sort of over my eyes, which is good because that'll allow me to wear a hat underneath this. And I think that that's going to help out with the overall look. So for right now, 28.5 was the measurement we got. A wise man once said, measure twice, cut once. But he's dead now, so whatever. It's 28.5. I say. So there's that, and then this is 14.5 high. So you could do like some math or some shit to figure out what you got to do here, but I'm gonna like put this on here and like do some numbers and stuff and then cut it. So it's coming along good. Now, if you want to have some extra wraparound to make this like layered and wavy, you can do it the way I did it. Or what you could do is you could cut that last piece we made sort of into a funnel or a conical shape and then put it on here. And then what it's going to do is it's going to come together real nice to a point at the top. And I may go back and do that. I have to see how this looks first. I wanted to see if maybe I could put a bunch of like ruffles and stuff in it. And having the extra fabric will work good for that. But, we may do it the other way. We'll have to see. So with a little bit of trimming and folding, we can get it to a point where it looks like a pretty good cone for the top of this hat. And then from here, it's basically just gluing it on again. But we're going to glue down the brim portion first and then come back and glue this on top. What I'm doing is just every so many inches, I'm cutting a little line. This is going to make it a lot easier when we fold this over to glue it down. And don't cut the whole way to the brim, just cut maybe like a 1/4 inch shy of it. If you picked up any stray gravel or leaves or wherever you're doing this at, make sure you just peel that off of there. Just remember, this spray glue is relentless. I mean, it dries almost instantly, so you got to really make sure you're on top of it. If you've never worked with it before, just do it a small portion at a time. And now for what is basically the final step, and that's wrapping this top piece around. Now I did cut this a little bit to adjust, but we're going to glue this on here, and this is going to have to be done fairly precisely here, so we'll have to be real careful when we're doing this. We'll take this spray glue just a little bit at a time. So how we start this is like this, and then we're going to wrap around, spray gluing very carefully, just a little bit at a time as we go, and positioning however we need to get this to look how we want it to. And now with a little bit of finessing, we have what's starting to look like a pretty decent wizard's cap. Now we're going and we're going to fold this back, work a little bit of extra magic on it and finesse it, and I think we'll be good to go. Extra step is go ahead and just sew around the base of this, and then sew this seam line in the back here. You can also sew around the edge of the brim. That'll just help keep this thing a little bit more substantial in case you decide to use it more than once. So when we start talking about putting these little folds in the hat, that's when the threaded needle will have to come out. And that's pretty much how we make this. So it's a pretty simple process, a lot of just cutting some fabric, gluing stuff onto an existing hat. It's very simple, very easy to do. If you have a lot of spare fabric, you won't have a problem. Like I said, I did this quickly. I didn't want to measure, I didn't want to waste a lot of time. If you want to measure and do it properly, that's up to you, but you can come out with this, even just not really trying. And now, like I said, this is for an American style boffer game, so I wanted this hat to look big and sort of goofy intentionally. So this is exactly how I wanted it to turn out, real bulbous like this, and it's gonna work great for what I have in mind. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please click like and subscribe. I have weekly LARP content on my channel, and I'll be finishing this entire costume in the week or two to come, and then hopefully reporting on that LARP that I go to play this wizard character. And you can sort of see the rest of this on the cheap gray wizard build that I'm going for here, and also see how it all comes together when I throw, you know, some extra embellishments and stuff on it as well. So until next time, adventure on.